Exposed, the incredible truth behind the hidden 300K that changed our lives forever. Sarah Reynolds stood at the edge of the chaotic whirlwind known as her life, where moments blended into a haze of hustle and exhaustion. A waitress at Maplewood's beloved diner during the day, she served up eggs and coffee to regulars who peppered her with small talk, asking about her adorable daughter, Lily. By night, she scrubbed office desks and swept floors, her body yearning for rest, but her heart buzzing with dreams. Yet, on this fateful morning, as the bright sun streamed through her worn window, she stumbled upon a forgotten treasure that would shatter her world and rebuild it all at once. Digging through an old storage box left by her estranged uncle, Sarah's fingers brushed against an unmarked envelope. Her breath caught in her throat. Was this love letter from the past, or something mundane? But as she opened it, disbelief engulfed her. 300,000 in crisp bills, glistening like buried treasure beneath layers of sorrow and longing. The weight of the world shifted as her heart raced, soaring with possibilities. Could this finally be the end to her burden of late-night bill pings and grocery store shame? Yet, an icy wave of trepidation washed over her. She remembered the values her parents instilled, a hard work ethic steeped in family ties. Was it right to claim this windfall for herself? Or did it belong to her brother, Jake? Family first, always. She hated to think of him confronting her, the years of resentment and distance rushing back, and the legacy of their childhood whispers echoing in her ears. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Day by day, the news of her inheritance spread through the veins of Maplewood like wildfire. Her neighbors, once allies sharing plates of casserole during tough times, now eyed her warily. Conversations turned from jubilant congratulations to tense debates about wealth, jealousy creeping like a thief in the night. Could one stroke of luck unravel the fabric of their simple lives? She felt the community's scrutiny, the eyes piercing her with judgment. An undercurrent of envy mixed with admiration made her stomach churn. As Sarah stood poised to address the community, face flushed and heart racing, she envisioned a radical choice. What if she didn't claim it for herself, but for Lily and all the kids of Maplewood? A community center, a haven filled with laughter, warmth, and opportunities, a place where no child would need to know the sting of hunger. But Jake's angry voice echoed in her mind. It's our birthright, Sarah. We owe it to family. The contrast left her dizzying and torn. As the townsfolk gathered, anticipation thick in the air, Sarah felt the enormity of her decision, the question of loyalty pressing against her chest like a vice. As her own breath hitched, she wondered, would she change their lives for the better or deepen the divide? And would her choice reach past the crumpled bills to mend what was broken not just in her family, but in her heart? The crowd's murmurs swirled around Sarah, an electrifying combination of hope and uncertainty hanging heavy in the warm summer air. She gripped the edge of the podium tightly, as though it were a lifeline. Faces of family, friends, and even that one guy from the diner who always tipped her generously met her gaze. Each expression curiosity, skepticism, admiration felt like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice wavering but resolute as she fought against the tight knot of fear in her throat. Thank you for being here today. The hall was packed, body to body, and the smell of popcorn lingered from the previous event, reminding her of simpler times, before the weight of money and choices invaded her life. I know you've heard the rumors about the money I've found. She took a deep breath, recalling the bills hidden away like the secrets that had always lingered in her family's past. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the thudding pulse of uncertainty. That money, she sighed, hearing Jake's voice echoing again in her mind, could change everything. The words spilled out before she could stop them. I want to use it for our community, for the children, not just mine. Gasps echoed in the room, an instant reaction that struck her hard. Some faces lit up, while others twisted in disbelief. "I've seen what this town can do when we come together," she continued, remembering the bake sales and charity events, the joy in the air when everyone rallied for a single cause. Her stomach fluttered, uncertainty mixing with a thrill. "But I have a brother, Jake, who thinks the money should belong to our family first. And maybe he's right. I don't know. All I know is that I've felt the weight of keeping secrets and avoiding conversations that have divided us." The crowd stirred, eyes darting between her and the door, as if expecting Jake to rush in and dispute her bold claims. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, picturing his angry face and the resentment that simmered between them. Could she face him if she went through with this? "I want a community center," she declared. "A safe place where our kids can learn, play, and gather. A light in this town, a hub of hope." The silence that followed was deafening, punctured only by her racing heartbeat. A woman in the front row leaned forward, her brow furrowed with concern. "But what about your future, Sarah? What if you need that money?" Her throat tightened. She thought of Lily, her dazzling smile, her dreams of dance and science. "I can't let old wounds dictate our children's future," she confessed. "We all deserve a chance to thrive." The passion in her voice ignited something in the room. Whispers turned to nods of agreement, although tension still hung like a dark cloud. People inched closer, some extending a hand as if reaching for the potential of her dream, while others remained rooted in skepticism. Then, from the back, Jake stepped forward, a silhouette of uncertainty, his face a storm of emotions. Her heart plummeted. The moment she'd feared most had arrived. "Sarah," he called, his voice steady, though sharp with vulnerability. "You owe it to yourself to think this through. What about family? What about me?" The crowd fell still as all attention shifted to him, the familiar figure she hadn't realized she longed to engage with. His words floated in the air like unresolved chords, leaving Sarah with the bitter taste of conflict on her tongue. Would they shatter those ties or find a way to mend them together? Did love still exist beneath their family rifts? As Jake's eyes pierced her, Sarah felt the weight of the world once again. What would she choose, and could she bring them together again? She locked eyes with him, resolve gathering force inside her. "We'll figure it out, together," she declared, uncertainty still flickering like a candle in the wind. Would the unveiling of this truth heal their family, or could it lead to a fracture too deep to mend? With that, she realized her journey was only beginning, and the hardest choices lay ahead. The tension in the room felt palpable as Jake's words hung in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she took in her brother's troubled expression. She could almost feel the collective breath of the crowd, all awaiting the next move. Would this be the breaking point or a chance for reconciliation? "Think it through, Sarah," Jake urged, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "You have no idea what it means to shift from being a sister to acting like the savior of the town." His posture stiffened as he scanned the crowd, gauging their reactions. "What gives you that right?" That question tore through Sarah like a cold wind. Did she have that right? She took a deep breath, eyes flicking to their parents' empty seats in the front row. The ache in her chest grew heavier. "I know it sounds selfish, Jake," she said, her voice breaking. "But this isn't about me. It's about creating something for those who will come after us, something our parents would have been proud of." The words spilled out, raw and uncertain. The murmurs in the crowd shifted, some in agreement, others still pondering. Sarah could see the doubts mirrored in their faces. She turned back to Jake. "You want the money for yourself, to fix what we lost. But what if we could use it to heal something greater than ourselves?" For a brief moment, silence enveloped them, wrapping tight like an embrace. Jake's brows furrowed, contemplating her words. She swallowed the fears lurking beneath the surface. Could she convince him? "Yeah, but you can't just neglect our needs. What about our family's trust?" Jake argued, frustration flashing across his eyes. This money could mean stability for us. It could help us rebuild after everything. She could see the hurt there, the fear of losing what little stability remained in their chaotic lives. It mirrored her own anxiety, the nagging doubt that whispered, what if this whole idea fails? I get that, Sarah said, her voice leveling. I'm scared too. But maybe this is a chance for us to build something that resembles family again, a way to honor our past by providing for our future. There was a shift in the crowd. Some nodded, others remained skeptical. But the spark of hope ignited by her words began to spread, like flickering candles in the dark. Jake hesitated, his eyes growing distant as if recollecting the light of their childhood. The smiles during summer barbecues, the laughter echoing through the streets, those were the memories worth fighting for. Just then, an elderly man rose from the back of the hall. I remember when your parents ran the community center years ago, he said, his voice strong despite his age. They poured their hearts into this town. You've got the spirit for it, Sarah. You've got to try. The gravity of that moment hung in the air. Her heart soared, intertwining with the respect and admiration from people she had grown up with. Could this be a new beginning? I'll find a way to include you, Jake, she promised, desperation creeping back into her words. The money can't just sit in a bank vault while families are struggling. We can do this, together. But I can't do it without you. A beat passed before Jake finally spoke, his defenses softening. Together, he echoed quietly. But it has to be our decision, not just yours. Sarah nodded, feeling a sense of unity flicker to life between them, a breath of hope. As the crowd's murmurs resumed, she sensed they were beginning to believe. Hope hung thick in the air, alive and buzzing. Sarah stepped off the podium, heart full of possibilities, knowing she'd have to navigate the storm that awaited. But as she felt Jake's hand clasp her shoulder, she knew this was just the beginning. What would their next step be? Would they overcome their deep-seated fears, or unravel in the face of the responsibility they had claimed? The answers lay ahead, veiled in the uncertainty of their shared journey, and she was ready to uncover them. Sarah stepped away from the podium, the weight of the crowd's gaze still clinging to her like a heavy coat. She could feel Jake's presence, steady and reassuring, his hand a solid comfort on her shoulder. The applause that filled the room was a hesitant sound, laced with both hope and skepticism. She knew they had sparked something, but the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. As they walked back to their seats, Sarah's thoughts churned. What if they really do trust us? She murmured under her breath. Jake gave her a sideways glance, holding her gaze for a moment as if weighing the same question. Let us just focus on what's next, he replied, though his voice wavered, revealing his own doubts about whether they could pull this off together. The meeting dragged on, discussions swirling around the need for plans, budgets, and committees. Each voice added another layer of complexity, and Sarah felt her confidence flickering like a candle in the wind. Yet, every time she looked at Jake, he nodded along, his serious demeanor encouraging her to hang on to hope. Later, as they stepped outside, the crisp evening air felt refreshing, but it couldn't wash away the anxiety that clung to Sarah. We need a solid plan, she said, her brows furrowing as ideas clashed in her mind. I want to involve everyone, make this a community project. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair, but that's the problem, Sarah. Everyone has their own needs, their own struggles. How can we balance all of that? By listening, she replied, her voice gaining strength. We start by gathering opinions. We hold meetings, brainstorm, and include everyone in this vision. Her passion sparked a flicker in Jake's eyes. You're right. They need to feel this is their idea, too. If we can ignite that sense of ownership. Sarah nodded, her heart racing. Exactly. If they see this as more than just our plan, they might actually rally behind it. As they turned to head down the street, Sarah spotted a group of kids playing a game of basketball on the playground, their laughter echoing through the night. It struck her she wanted them to have a place to gather, a safe haven that kept the spirit of their childhood alive. She stopped, turning to Jake, her excitement bubbling over. What if we built a community center like Mom and Dad had? A place where kids can play, families can gather, and everyone feels included. Jake's eyes lit up. That's it. A place that embodies everything our parents believed in. But how do we convince everyone? We keep talking, she said, her determination stronger than ever. We use every opportunity to share our vision. We need to show them the potential of that money, not just the cash, but what it can become. As they walked home beneath the stars, Sarah felt a spark of optimism igniting a warmth inside her. This was more than just about money, it was about rebuilding their community, their friends, and their shared future. But just as they approached their house, a shadow detached itself from the fence. Sarah halted in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat as she recognized the figure. It was Mr. Thompson, the town's former mayor. "Can I talk to you too?" His voice was grave, and the concern etched into his face sent chills down Sarah's spine. "There's something you need to know about that money, something I wasn't sure you were ready for." What revelation was he about to deliver that could change everything? Mr. Thompson paused, his eyes darting between Sarah and Jake, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the chilly night air. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. The anticipation was nerve-wracking. "Let us sit down," he finally suggested, gesturing toward a nearby bench. They moved slowly, minds racing with questions. Sarah's was a whirlpool of thoughts. "Just tell us," Jake said, his voice steady but edged with impatience. The former mayor took a deep breath. "When your parents passed, they left behind more than just memories. They also left a trust fund. The money you received, it was intended for the community. But we were told it was just—" Sarah's voice trailed off as she struggled to find the words, the truth dawning on her. "Just a donation." Mr. Thompson interjected gently. "That money was earmarked for a community project. Your parents envisioned something like a community center long before you. They wanted that money to keep their ideal alive." Jake's brow furrowed. "Then why didn't anyone tell us? We've been stumbling in the dark. The town was at odds for years on how to use it. Life happened, and frankly, they just lost sight of it," he explained, his voice softening. "But you have a passion for this. You could breathe life back into their vision." A rush of hope surged through Sarah, but it was entwined with sorrow. "Will people believe us? I can't let them think we're taking advantage of something that was always meant for them." Mr. Thompson smiled gently. "You are the bridge. You've already captured hearts tonight with your words. With the right approach, this could be the moment everyone begins to rally around that dream again." "But how do we handle the doubts?" Jake asked. "What if they think we're just looking out for ourselves?" "They need transparency," Mr. Thompson replied. "Get people involved from the start. Share your parents' vision. Open that door to the community, and let them step inside." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. If they could turn this into a community effort, it could strengthen bonds and renew hope. "We can hold a meeting to discuss all of this openly. Invite everyone. Make sure they see the money isn't just ours, it's theirs too," she proposed, the excitement brewing inside her again. Demar. Thompson nodded, seeing the fire ignite in her eyes. "And remember, your parents' legacy is a foundation to build upon. Keep their spirit alive. That is how you transform their vision into something tangible." As they stood to leave, Sarah felt lighter, yet a new sense of responsibility settled on her shoulders. This money wasn't just a plan anymore, it carried a legacy. If they could harness that, maybe, just maybe they could create something profound. But as they approached the driveway, ready to plant the seeds of their newfound project, a sleek black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing a sharply dressed woman with piercing eyes. "Sarah. Jake. We need to talk right now. It's important." What could she possibly know that would change the course of their plans again? Sarah's heart raced as she took in the woman's serious expression. The car's interior exuded an air of authority that sent a shiver down her spine. Who are you? Jake asked, stepping protectively in front of his sister. The woman leaned closer, the faint scent of expensive perfume wafting through the window. My name is Lydia Harper. I've been trying to reach you both about the trust fund. There's a lot more at stake here than you know. What do you mean? Sarah's voice trembled slightly, caught between fear and curiosity. Lydia sighed, her brows knitting together. Your parents didn't just leave behind a community project. They were involved in something much bigger. They knew what they were doing when they set up that fund, and they had enemies, people who want that money to stay hidden. Jake's jaw tightened. Enemies? What are you talking about? Lydia glanced around nervously as if checking for listeners. It's complicated. Your parents uncovered corruption within the town council. They fought to ensure that the fund was used for the right reasons. I was their lawyer, and I've been trying to secure their legacy ever since. A wave of confusion washed over Sarah. But why didn't you tell us sooner? I could never reach you. Your parents made sure their plans were kept secret, even from me, until it was time, Lydia explained, her voice lowering. Now, with you two standing here, it's time to bring things to light. But you're in danger if others find out you're involved. They'll do anything to keep the truth buried. Danger? Jake echoed, the words sending an adrenaline rush through him. We can handle it. We want to know everything. Okay, but you'll need to be cautious, Lydia warned. There have been accidents, numerous unexplained events surrounding members of your parents' circle, including, she hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully, including me. The gravity of her words hit like a smack. You're saying they were murdered? Sarah whispered, her throat dry as the truth clawed at her insides. I'm not saying that outright, Lydia replied, her dark eyes locking with Sarah's. But I do believe that your parents' secrets put a target on their backs. The money? It's no ordinary fund, it's part of a fight for justice. One way or another, you have to continue this battle. Quiet settled around them, the night air thick with the weight of revelation. They were no longer just kids managing a trust. They were now participants in something monumental, something that came at a price. The urgency simmered as they exchanged glances, fear tangling with determination in their eyes. Jake finally spoke, his voice steady. What do we need to do? Lydia's expression softened for a moment, relief washing over her. First, we meet. I have documents that outline everything. We need to plan how to reveal this to the community without triggering backlash. All right, Sarah said, her mind racing with implications. Let us do it. We owe it to our parents. As they turned to follow Lydia to the car, Sarah felt a strange amalgamation of excitement and dread. What lay ahead felt like a storm, fierce and unpredictable, but she wouldn't hold back. They were stepping into a chapter they never knew existed. But as they climbed into the car, Lydia's phone buzzed. Her face paled. We have to hurry, she hissed. They're on to us. A jolt of fear shot through Sarah. Who were they, and how had they found out? The drive ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, and the urgency of the mission hung thick in the air. They hadn't just inherited a legacy, they had inherited a fight. What other secrets waited to emerge, and at what cost? The car sped down the dark street, the tires crunching against the gravel. Lydia kept glancing nervously into the rearview mirror, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. Sarah could see Jake's jaw clenched tight, eyes darting around as if expecting shadows to materialize into threats. Where are we going? Jake finally asked, breaking the tense silence. Just a safe place, Lydia replied curtly. I have a storage unit where your parents kept crucial documents and evidence. It'll be secure there. Sarah could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The need to understand surged within her. What kind of evidence? She pressed, her voice shaking slightly despite her best efforts to sound strong. It's not just about the trust fund, Lydia said, her tone grave. It's about everything they discovered. Corruption, mismanagement, and it reaches into the very fabric of this town. Your parents were trying to expose it all. Jake looked at Sarah, his expression a mix of disbelief and determination. So there are people who want to stop us. To shut us down before we even start. That's exactly it, Lydia confirmed. And they'll go to great lengths to protect the status quo. The weight of Lydia's words settled heavily like a blanket over the car. The thought of their parents facing off against corruption was both inspiring and terrifying. They had lived a normal life, but now they were part of something much larger, something they couldn't quite grasp. As they arrived at the storage facility, Lydia quickly maneuvered the car into a spot far from the entrance, her gaze still searching the surroundings. Stay close to me, she instructed, her voice dropping to a whisper. Keep your heads down and act like you're just here for a regular visit. They stepped out of the car, the air thick with tension. Each sound seemed amplified: distant chatter, the rustle of leaves, even the faint sound of a siren somewhere far off. Sarah followed closely behind Lydia, Jake flanking her side. They moved cautiously, approaching the entrance with a mix of fear and anticipation. Inside the storage area, the smell of dust and rust was heavy. Lydia led them to a far corner, unlocking the unit with a steady hand. As the door creaked open, a dim light spilled out, revealing shelves lined with boxes. They entered, and Lydia began rummaging through the contents, pulling out folders and old files. Here, she said, holding up a faded document. Your parents have been tracking donations, financial records tied to council members. There's a lot of redacted information, but it's enough to start connecting the dots. Sarah leaned in, squinting to read the names. Every name sparked recognition, sending chills down her spine. These were people who smiled at them, who waved on their street. Her fingers trembled as she touched the brittle paper. What do we do with this? We expose it, Lydia said urgently. But we need solid proof and a plan. Just sending this out without context could lead to chaos. I want to let the truth be twisted to hurt you. Then we do it together, Jake interjected, an unexpected fire lighting in his eyes. We share our parents' story, show the town the truth they forgot to protect. Lydia nodded, visibly impressed by their resolve. That's the spirit, but we also need to strategize how to present this information. It needs to be powerful enough to rally support without putting you directly in the line of fire. Just then, the sound of footsteps outside sent a chill up Sarah's spine. She exchanged wide-eyed glances with Jake and Lydia, who immediately tensed. We have to hide. Lydia urged, moving to shove the folders hastily back into the box. The three of them froze momentarily, hearts racing, as the footsteps grew louder. The danger had just become real. Were they really prepared to take on a system that could crush them? Before they could react, the door to the storage unit swung open, revealing a dark figure silhouetted against the dim light. Looking for something? The figure asked, a sinister grin spreading across their face. Fear clutched at Sarah's throat, and she could feel her heart thundering in her ears. What had they just stepped into? The moment of truth was finally at hand. Jake stepped forward instinctively, drawing the figure's gaze. Sarah could barely move, her breath caught somewhere between her mouth and her chest. The flickering light cast unsettling shadows, turning the figure into a menacing silhouette. What do you want? Jake demanded. His voice wavered, but he stood firm, a lone barrier between Sarah and the unknown. Relax, kid, the figure said with a smirk. I'm only here to help if you know what's good for you. Lydia took a protective step in front of Sarah, her expression fierce. We don't need your help. Who are you? The figure laughed, a sharp, cold sound that echoed in the cramped space. Oh, but you do. You're way in over your heads. Those documents won't help you. They'll only put you in more danger. Sarah felt the heat of anger rising in her chest. What do you know about them? More than you realize, the figure said, crossing his arms as if he held all the cards. I've been watching your parents for a long time. They thought they could expose the corruption hidden in this town. But trust me, it's a lot deeper than you think. And now? It's your turn at bat. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Jake straightened, voice unwavering despite the tremor in his hands. We're not afraid of you. We know what our parents stood for, and we'll fight for it. Is that right? The figure leaned back against the doorframe, a twisted amusement dancing in his eyes. Do you even know what you're up against? There are people who control everything from the council to the police. All they need is an excuse, and they'll crush you without a second thought. Lydia turned to Sarah and Jake, her expression softening. I know it's overwhelming. But we can still do this. We need to decide quickly what our next step is, or we could lose everything our parents fought for. The figure felt like a stone against their resolve, but there was fire growing within Sarah, a light flickering in the depths of despair. There must be a way, she whispered, her mind racing with possibilities that could turn the tide. Maybe we can use what they're afraid of against them. That's the spirit, Lydia said, her voice steadying Sarah's nerves. We just need a way to be smarter about this. But we need to make sure we're prepared for any backlash. The figure shrugged, dismissive. Good luck, kids. But just remember, you don't know who you're dealing with. And with that, he stepped back into the shadows, disappearing into the dimly lit corridor of the storage facility. The door creaked shut behind him, leaving an echo of uncertainty. What just happened? Jake breathed, disbelief washing over his face. We have to regroup and think, Lydia urged. We can't let fear dictate our next move. This goes beyond just us now. But what do we do? Sarah asked, her voice steadier than she felt. First, we need to figure out who we can trust. Lydia glanced towards the unit doorway, her eyes scanning for signs of danger. We should reach out to a few people who might be on our side. And then we plan our next step strategically. Jake nodded, an unspoken agreement forming between them. They were in this together, and there was no turning back now. They couldn't let fear win. As they began to gather the scattered documents, the weight of their parents' legacy bore down heavily. They knew they had the truth on their side, but the question loomed, could it be enough to stand against the shadows lurking just outside? With one last glance at the door, they stepped into the unknown, their resolve echoing louder than their fear. They were up against powers greater than they could fathom, but they were ready to fight. Sarah, Jake said, his expression suddenly serious. If we're doing this, we need to know, are you in or out? And in that moment, Sarah knew, she couldn't turn away now. Her heart surged with clarity. I'm in. We expose them, no matter the cost. But as they turned to leave, the faint sound of footsteps echoed down the hall again, closer this time. Get down. Lydia hissed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The danger had returned, creeping closer once more, and this time, would they be ready to face it? The world blurred around Sarah as she dropped to the ground, heart racing against her ribcage. The footsteps grew louder, an ominous cadence reverberating through the quiet storage facility. Stay quiet, Jake whispered, urgency tightening his voice. They pressed against the cold floor, each sound heightened and raw, each heartbeat thudding in their ears like an urgent drum. The door creaked open again, the dim light spilling into their dark corner. A figure loomed in the doorway, scanning the room with a piercing gaze that felt like a searchlight sweeping over them. Sarah could barely breathe as she ducked lower, her fingers trembling against the concrete. Who is it? She mouthed urgently to Jake and Lydia, desperate for an answer. Just wait, Jake replied, the tension visible in his posture. As the figure stepped inside, Sarah held herself still, every part of her awash with dread. The silhouette grew clearer. It wasn't he, the man they defaced earlier, but rather someone far more familiar. Tom. Lydia breathed, her eyes widening in disbelief as she recognized their old history teacher, a man who had once stood up against injustices in the school, someone who had been fired after raising concerns about unethical practices. Lydia, Sarah, Jake, he said, lowering his voice as he stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. "I thought it was you. We need to talk, and fast. I'm risking everything just being here." "Why? What do you know that's so important?" Sarah asked, pushing herself upright, her heart still racing. Tom glanced around, ensuring they were alone before he leaned in closer. "You don't know how deep this goes. Those documents you found, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Your parents were onto something big, something that could expose the council's richest members in ways they'd never want anybody to know." Jake looked alarmed. "You're in danger, too, Tom. Why help us? You could lose everything." Tom hesitated, his expression shadowed by fear. "Because I believe in what your parents stood for, and I can't let their work go unfinished. You all deserve to know the truth, and I can guide you, but we need to do it swiftly and delicately." Lydia's voice was fierce, bolstered by determination. "Then let us do it. We need a plan." "First," Tom said, urgency lacing his words, "we have to make sure we're not being followed. Trust is thin in this town, but I have a contact who can help us compile what we have into something usable. We can't go out naively, they're watching." "So what's next?" Sarah asked, her mind racing with visions of what lay ahead. This was bigger than them now. "We can meet at my place. It's safer. I have old contacts and resources that can aid us." Tom's eyes flickered with a mix of hope and anxiety. With a nod, they agreed to the plan. But just as they started to gather their belongings, a loud crash echoed from the storage facility's entrance. "Did you hear that?" Jake exclaimed, suddenly alert. "Stay down," Tom urged, his voice low and firm. They all froze, tension curling tight in the air like a coiled spring. The footsteps from before were now accompanied by shouts, echoing through the corridor. They could hear the distant thud of boots against the concrete floor. Panic rushed in like a flood. Whoever was coming seemed intent on finding them. "Go," Tom whispered urgently. "We have to split up. Meet at my place. I'll distract them." "What?" "No," Sarah cried, fear rising in her throat. "Trust me. It's the only way," Tom insisted, his eyes fierce with determination. "I can't let them find you here." With a split-second decision, they nodded together. The room held a tense silence as they exchanged glances. They needed to trust Tom. Without a second thought, Lydia shot toward the side exit while Jake grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her along, heart pounding in sync with the chaos building behind them. Every nerve was on fire as they dashed through the staff exit, but the shouting grew louder. "Get out! Get out!" Echoed through the empty hall. In the frenzy, Sarah could only think of Tom's words, "You can't expose the truth without facing danger. What if they didn't make it?" Shaking off the chilling thought, Sarah focused on escaping. They had no idea what awaited them once they reached Tom's place or what lengths the forces after them would go to silence them, but one thing was crystal clear: they were all in this together, and the next steps would be more critical than ever. And as they rounded the corner, breathless but resolved, Sarah wondered just how far they would go to uncover the truth, and whether they were ready for the consequences waiting around the next bend. The air crackled with tension as they moved, hearts racing like wild horses pulling at their reins. Sarah and Jake didn't stop until they reached Tom's house, a nondescript little place that stood tucked behind overgrown hedges. They burst through the door, adrenaline pumping through their veins, desperate for safety and clarity. Once they were inside, Lydia quickly locked the door behind them, her brow knotted with worry. "We can't keep running, not forever," she whispered, trying to catch her breath. "We have to take charge." Tom was already rifling through boxes in the back room. "I've been gathering your parents' essential documents for years. We need to turn this into a full-blown presentation. If we're going to win the town's support, we need the truth on our side." Jake moved closer, his eyes shining with determination. "What do you need from us?" Sarah took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. "We'll help you however we can. We owe it to our parents, we owe it to the town. Tom paused for a moment, looking at each of them. Then let us start outlining everything. We need the records tied to the council's funding anything that shows misuse or corruption. If we can prove it, we can leverage that to stop them. An old board covered in notes and sticky notes greeted them. The tangled web of connections stood before them, each piece a beacon of hope against the shadows that loomed. They began piecing together the chaos, fueled by a flicker of courage that had sparked deep inside them. As they worked, fear morphed into focus. They were no longer victims of their circumstances, they were warriors for their parents' legacy. Hours slid by unnoticed as they compiled documents, sketches, files, all dripping with the truth they could finally shout from the rooftops. A community center wasn't just a dream now, it was a platform from which they could fight. But just as the last piece fell into place, a loud banging on the door shattered their moment of triumph. Heart rates skyrocketed. They've found us. Lydia gasped, and panic coursed through the room. Get ready, Tom instructed, his previous calm replaced with urgency. We might have to defend ourselves or flee again. Should we split up? Jake suggested, anxiety bubbling in his tone. No. Sarah exclaimed, feeling a surge of protective instinct. We stay together. No one gets left behind. Together they huddled in the corner, breathless, the world outside a tempest. Uncertainty rippled through the air, but at that moment, within their tight-knit circle, hope flickered brighter than fear, the banging intensified, the sound of voices permeating the walls like smoke. This was their defining moment. They had uncovered truths, but if they were going to rise, they needed to get the evidence out. Without hesitation, they moved as one toward the back door. Go. Tom urged, pushing them ahead. I'll slow them down. Before they knew it, they were sprinting into the cool night, heads high, hearts tearing forward with the boldness of their purpose. They found their way to a nearby alley, adrenaline pumping through their limbs, the adrenaline tightening their muscles. Do you have that flash drive? Jake asked quickly. The one with all the documents? Right here, Sarah confirmed, her fingers tightening around it as if it were a lifeline. Let us find a way to get this to the people, Tom said, scanning the area carefully. If we can get everyone to rally behind us, there can't be anything they can do to stop us. Sweat dripped down their brows as they made their way through the maze of the town. Sarah's mind raced with strategies, and uncertainty still buzzed around them like gnats, but this time, their fears found a purpose. In dim candlelight seeping from a nearby cafe, they spotted a crowd, the same neighbors who had once eyed Sarah with skepticism. Her heart sank for a moment, vulnerability washing over her, but as the group began to turn toward them, recognition lit their faces. Sarah. Tom. Someone called. This was their chance. We need your help, Sarah shouted, her voice cracking but powerful. We have proof of corruption that's been hiding in plain sight. We need you to listen, to stand with us for change. The crowd shifted, whispers humming like electricity through the air. You can't fight the council alone, a voice interjected, its concern palpable. What makes us believe this isn't just more trouble? Because we have the truth. Jake shot back, raising the flash drive, determination resonating in every syllable. Join us, and we can reclaim our community. Slowly, hands began to rise, eyes filling with belief. Together they stood, a chorus of voices rising, turning fear into a battle cry. The fight was bigger than fear, bigger than shadows. They were all in this together, a tapestry of unity sewn together by shared experience and longing for a better tomorrow. As dawn broke, the town awoke to resilience, strength, and the undeniable power of community. Sarah knew they had not just found a cause, but they had discovered what family truly meant, and in that moment, Sarah met Jake's eyes, understanding blooming in the silence between them. They wouldn't just mend their family, they'd rebuild their home. This was their legacy, this was their fight, and they were just getting started. Now, more than ever, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm, showing your support for our incredible journey. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these pivotal actions.